Ladies and gentlemen and ladies, welcome to what is going to be a controversial YouTube video. When isn't it, right? When isn't it ever controversial whenever I get on here and have my say and my piece about certain specific events that have transpired over the years. And while I cover a lot of wide range variety of topics, the one that really gets under my skin and irks me the hardest is the subject of racism. Because while America, yes, a long time ago, and I do mean a long time ago, did exhibit a lot of outwardly manifested racist behavior. Now, we all know the history, right? We all know history. So we don't have to go back and we don't have to, you know, rehash any of what we've seen throughout history. So let's concentrate and focus on today, the here and the now. And let's talk about, is there racism in the world? Now, if you're talking about systemic racism, the answer is no. If you're talking about racism where people don't like other people, I guess you could kind of make an argument for it. But, see, nothing was ever, how can I put it? Nothing was ever etched in stone, written down somewhere, and placed inside of a vault that said you had to get along with everybody, you have to love everybody, right? Now, you say, yeah, but it doesn't have to be written down and etched in stone and put in the inside the vault in order for it to be, a commandment, a law. Well, again, show me where the law is written down that people have to like one another. You see, this is where free will comes into automatic play. Now, you do remember free will, right? If you don't know what free will is, then you're going to have to get back into the time machine, go back to the beginning of creation, and you're going to have to stand there between God and Satan himself, and you're going to have to watch them battle it out in words over what would be considered free will. And then maybe you would have some inkling of an idea of what it really, truly 100% really means. I mean, because you see, nobody can tell you what to do technically. See, you've always had it planted right in here. What's the difference between right and wrong? Now, how do I know that? Well, think back to when you were a kid and you did something. I don't care if you took your box of crayons and wrote on the wall. If you broke a dish, if you broke some glass, if you jumped on the bed when your mother told you not to jump on the bed and you still did it anyways, you took a cookie when they said you couldn't have a cookie. See, you know you got yourself into some trouble, and you get this eerie, icky feeling inside of yourself. And that's your conscience eating at you and telling you, you know, you're screwed up. And by screwing up, you know that automatically there's going to be some form of punishment that goes along with screwing up. It's not always going to be a simple slap on the wrist. If you hit your parents, if you broke the TV, if you punched a hole in the wall, you kicked a hole in the wall, you slammed the front door, your parents were going to get angry with you and they were going to take off their belt or use a spoon or use their own little hand and they were going to give you an old fashioned whooping. And you knew, don't do that again. Because you didn't want no piece of this. You wanted no part of this. Once was enough. You didn't like how it felt to have your parents discipline you right then and there on the spot. Whether it was in front of other family members, whether it was in front of your friends, whether it was in front of a stranger. You didn't like that magic, that little feeling that you had. And so you learned never to do it again. You learned your lesson. Now, don't get me wrong. At some point in life, yeah, you did screw up, and you know you did. And you keep thinking, man, what did I do? What did I do? What did I do? I didn't do nothing. But see, deep down, you know you did something. And again, you face the very surreal possibility that you will be disciplined for what you did. And there's no real way of getting out of it except that maybe you hope that there's leniency in the discipline. As one of my friends who passed away last year, well, actually, what was it, 2 years, 2 years ago? It was a lesson that he learned. And so, I'll get into this story a little bit before I get into the real meat and potatoes of what I really want to say about this whole thing. Now, he grew up in Ireland, and Ireland was known for having very strict parenting when it came to children. Children obeyed their elder. They didn't smart off. They didn't screw around in school. It was nose to the grindstone. You hit your books, you do your chores, you eat your supper, do your homework. And if there's time for you to go outside and to go play, maybe you got a little bit of freedom to go out and you know, play with your buddies. Well, one day as he's sitting in class, there comes this knock on the door. And my friend has this habit, or had this habit, of saying, come in. Now, it's something that he does at home all the time, right? So for him, it's a natural thing. So in walks this hunchly lady with her umbrella in her hand, and she starts chasing around the Christian brothers who ran the schools. And the brothers and the nuns were, again, they were hard nosed. They didn't put up with crap. So here's Mrs. Tinch chasing this Christian brother who's a young man, and she's smacking him with the umbrella, right? And everybody in the class is just sitting there, and they're not saying a word because they can't say anything. But secretly, deep down, they're rooting for Mrs. Tinch, to really, give the young Christian brother a good walloping. So after the principal and a few other people came in and calmed the situation down and got her out of the room, and the young brother composed himself, comes back in, and he's mad. He's pissed. And, rightfully so, because you can't blame him. He looks at the class and he says, "Who told Mrs. Tinch that she could come into my classroom?" Nobody answers. "Who told Mrs. Tinch that she could come into my classroom?" Again, no answer. "Oh, nobody said for her to come into my classroom. All right. Everybody up on the line, hands out." Now, the reason that they put the hands out is because they smack your hands with a paddle. And yes, it hurts like hell. Now, rather than getting an entire classroom in trouble, because he knows he did it, right? He knows he did it. He raised his hand very bravely. And he says, I did it, sir. And he proceeded to tell the young Christian brother, who, listened very attentively to what he had to say. He says, "I have this habit at home. You know, somebody knocks on the door, and I say, 'Come in.' And the brother looked at him and he says, don't you ever tell anybody to come into my classroom like that ever again. Now, see, the brother could have gave him a good old fashioned beating right then and there. And he would have deserved it because there would have been nobody that would have given this guy, you know, a second thought for what he did to him. You know, and you may say, well, that's mean. But doing something that just comes completely natural and you're gonna beat the living hell out of them for it. Well, I don't see the purpose in any of that. Well, while I agree, it may not look like there's a purpose and a value, at least to you. But it's not his job to bring anybody into the classroom by telling them that they can, quote unquote, come in. You say, yeah, but come on, you're telling somebody to come in. See, if you're a complete and total stranger in my house, somebody knocks on the door, and that stranger says to the other stranger, come in. Now, see, I didn't give you permission to tell that other individual to come in. Now, did I? No. Oh, so what right did you have to tell somebody else to come in? Now, think about that for a few minutes while we get into the real, meat and potatoes of this whole debacle. So everybody's seen the video now, and something I didn't realize is that again it's a 9-second video, and I want to thank Brandon Tatum for pointing that out because that's a very interesting point that he makes, and I believe that it is crucial in this whole thing to point out that this was a video designed to get something, to turn it into something that really wasn't meant to be brought into the forefront. Two little girls, and the Rosita character you know, gets the brunt of the anger because she wouldn't, pick up the little girls or give them a high five or stop and acknowledge them. and now you're crying Rodney King. I mean, I don't know about you, but you see, I see that as absolute total foolishness. It's nonsense. I also agree with Brandon Tatum that you need to walk up to someone in management or whomever and tell them what happened. And I'm sure that they would be willing to rectify the problem. I mean, again, they're not savages to the point where they just completely fluff you off and say, well, tough. And the park even went as far as saying, hey, we'll bring them back for a VIP experience. And they can meet all the characters that they want. And yet, what are they doing? They're going out and they're hiring Benjamin Crump, who, you know, is an ambulance chasing watchdog, race baiter, if that's, the best way to describe them. And then they're getting their attorney involved, and then, I mean, they're turning it into a joke. They're turning it into a joke. And again, all because they couldn't get their own way. So when they can't get their own way, and we've seen this before. So this is not something new that we've been seeing. We've been seeing people crying wolf for a long, long, long time. They cried wolf over Michael Brown. They cried wolf over Juan Castillo. They cried wolf over Breonna Taylor. Cried wolf over George Floyd. Cried wolf over Daniel Hambrick. And yet, they don't cry wolf when young black kids are dying in the streets of Chicago and in New York and in Los Angeles, Houston, Dallas. There's no one standing outside, protesting over them being killed. Only do it when it's a white person or a cop. You say, well, what's the motivation? Why would they do something like that? Well, it's very simple. They've always believed that there should be repartition for slavery years, for the mistreatment. But here's the thing: we can go back in history, go back in time, and talk about mistreatment and, repartitions. So the Egyptians would be the very first to have to pay out money because they enslaved the Jews and killed them. You would have to go back in time and talk about all the early settlers that came to America and helped rape and plunder the Indians and kick them off their lands and force them onto reservations. The Germans would have to pay repartitions to the Jews for their atrocities during the Holocaust. The Russian government would have to pay, repartitions to the people that they unfairly mistreated during the days of Stalin and Lenin and the Bolsheviks. What about the mistreatment of the Japanese that were put into internment camps? The mistreatment of the Irish, the mistreatment of the Italians that came to America and were basically told, go home. We don't want your kind here. Don't think it happened? Look it up. It's part of American history. All these people were all mistreated, and not one single penny was ever paid to them. You say, well, see, now that proves my point. The country's racist. No, it's that the government can't pay back everybody. The government can't pay anything because they're playing with funny money. And we can get into the whole printing of funny money and how, the promissory notes are published and, how the whole damn thing works, but I'll let you look up those videos. But the government can't even stand up on their own 2 feet. And now you're expecting them to go out and pay you hundreds of millions of dollars that they don't have? for the over hyper inflated interest on that money that'll never be paid back? But you think the government can just go out and pluck money off the tree? You live in a fantasy world. You really do. You live in a damn fantasy world. Now, yes, it is true that, the government tax the living shit out of people, except for the rich. But if you think that you know, the government is going to go after the upper class, not going to happen. Not going to happen. They're untouchables. And by going out there and crying wolf and screaming, racist Rodney King, racist Rodney King, racist Rodney King, the government shakes in their boots and they say, we better pay him. And it ultimately, it breaks the back of the system just a little bit more. I mean, it's bad enough that, the back hasn't been completely and totally broken yet, but there is going to be, how can I put it? There's going to be a point in time when the government says, we're paralyzed, folks. That's it. The money's done. The money's done. We now have to come up with a brand new way of getting you your money. Because, you see, we don't want to leave you in the dark without your money, because we know that you need to live. We know that you need to eat, and you have to drive a car. With a nice roof over your head. So now we have to come up with a brand new way of doing things. And of course, we get into the whole one world government, one world system, one world religion, which, by the way, just so everybody does know, this is all part of it. This is all part of it. Now, I don't know about you, but, if you've ever seen those bumper stickers where they've got the crescent moon, the Star of David, they got the cross, and the message is basically unity. We are one. That's what part of this is about. Part of that movement that we are one. We are all one under the umbrella. And if you want to live and if you want to survive, you have to live and play by our rules. It's like the Muslims trying to, you know, push Sharia law into, full existence. And everybody would have to be under Sharia law. And if you didn't live under Sharia law and you wanted to live under the law of, let's say, religion, real religion, well, we can't guarantee your safety. We might do what the Nazis did in World War II and basically send you out into the streets and put you up in a ghetto somewhere until, we can find a nice FEMA camp for you to go to. And from there, well, it's down to two choices: play our game the way we want it played, or gone. Which is it going to be? See, I have no doubt in my mind that, all these quote unquote race baiters and all these other people that are part of that living under one umbrella type of attitude are all going to be ones that, look at the umbrella and they're going to say, boy, I'll tell you, it's nice and shady underneath here. Oh, it's nice and cool. Oh, look at those poor bastards over there. They're sweating and dying. Oh, look at us. Hey, that's 100, 200, 300, 400. That's 1,000. And they're going to be counting their money. All happy and proud of themselves because they kowtowed and catered. And they got what they wanted. And yeah, they're going to talk among themselves. Look at that racist piece of trash over there. Look at that. Look at that. Hey, how does it feel, racist? Huh? How does it feel? See, this is why the government has to break the cycle now. Just stop believing the crying wolf idiots. The guy who killed Michael Brown had nothing to do with racism. It had everything to do with the fact that Michael Brown was resisting arrest and attempting to kill the officer. George Floyd had fentanyl and methamphetamines in his system already. What did the cop do that could escalate or perpetuate George Floyd dying? I believe honestly that, George Floyd, quite honestly, when he took that fentanyl and meth, signed his own death warrant. Right then, right there. Well, you didn't see the video, man. You didn't see the video. The cop had his knee on his neck. I've seen the video. I've seen the video. And I didn't see Chauvin's knee anywhere near his neck. I saw him hover over George Floyd. And that's to protect him. Because when people are high like that, they have a tendency to want to spring up and lash out. And then they become a danger to others and they become a danger to themselves. So what do? They just simply hover over the top. Juan Castillo reaching for a gun? How dumb can you be, man? Freddie Gray? Weapon? And don't give me that garbage about Breonna Taylor being, innocent, because I've read the police report, which, by the way, you can get on the Tatum report. All you got to do is look it up. It's right there, plain as black and white. Her boyfriend gave her up quick. Now, do you know how she really died? Because her boyfriend used her as a shield. That's right. Her boyfriend used her as a shield. And the cop fired blind, and she just happened to be in the way of the cop's bullet that was intended for him. Is that racist? No. But what a boyfriend, right? What a boyfriend. This is the woman that you profess to love, right? But this is how you treat her. You let her take your bullet for you. and then you sit there and you blame the cops. Well, it is the cops' fault because they are racist. They are racist. Even the black and the Hispanic cops, the Asian cops, they're racist. Why? Because they did their job to keep criminals off the streets. And we're left with no other choice but to open fire, not to kill people. I want to make that point very crystal clear. It is not to kill people. The intent is to subdue the subject so that the subject can then be transported to a hospital because they're going to need to be treated for their wound. And then they're going to be carted off to jail the minute the hospital releases them. Because they have to answer for their crime. But see, to morons, they do nothing wrong. They're just being unfairly picked on for no reason at all. And that's a load of crap. They're not picking on you because they felt like picking on you because of your skin color. That is just a fallacy. You just don't want to own up to your crime. You don't want to own up to the fact that you were shoplifting, that you had a gun when you weren't supposed to have a gun. You had drugs on you when you know you're not supposed to have drugs on you. You were drinking while you were driving and knowing that you cannot drink and and drive at the same time. You slapped your girl around. You slapped your mama. You slapped your daddy. You slapped your uncle. You slapped, your baby brother, your sister. You raped somebody. You were selling drugs. See, do these all sound familiar? Because you see, these are all things that black people tend to do an awful lot of. They always seem to be the ones that get into trouble. And then they're the first ones that want to cry wolf. Now, you don't see Asians or Hispanics or whites sitting there crying wolf. You don't really see them crying wolf. They're not making up for cocktail stories with these ambulance chasing race baiters who are going to get them a ton of money, but then on top of all that, they're going to get them off the charges that they racked up. And you see, all that does is just gives people a free license to go right back out into the streets and go do it again. Because they've learned the secret to how to get what they want when they want it. All they have to do is cry, racist, and it all disappears. Racist. Now, I've got to take a short break here, but I'll be right back. So don't go nowhere. We're just getting started, folks. Okay, and we're back. Now, I like what Judge John J. Hurley did down in Florida. Now, I'm not sure if it's Dade County or if it's Broward, but anyways, his video I think is the epitome of how all judges should treat these types of cases. He had a gentleman that stood before him in a video conference, and it was in an arraignment hearing. And the only thing that John J. Hurley wanted to hear was guilty, not guilty, no contest, right? Now, this guy's attorney got up, okay, and started with the judge, you know, very, very cordial like, good morning, Your Honor. This is what your This is what your client is being charged with. And he has 3 pleas today that he can enter into. And the attorney for this guy says, Your Honor, this was racially motivated. Right? And he went on this whole racist rant, right? About how he was unfairly being trailed by the police department and all this other stuff. And the judge says, Counselor, whoa, I don't want to hear it. This is not the time or the place for this conversation. This is just a simple arraignment hearing. And the only 3 things one of the 3 things that I want to hear is guilty, not guilty, no contest. Oh, well, we plead, not guilty, Your Honor. Okay, all right. Well, your plea of not guilty has been entered. Your client is denied bail, so he will go back into his cell, and he will wait for his trial date to start. Have a good day. Now, when I saw that, I said to myself, good for you, man. Good for you. We need more judges with balls like that. Just stand up and say, you know what? We're not going to hear that argument. Because that's not even an argument. Because you can never, beyond a reasonable doubt, ever prove to me that it was racially motivated. Your client fled in the commission of a crime. No, he doesn't get to stand here and talk about Rodney King and racism. We will not hear that argument. Not in my courtroom, not ever. And even a judge by the name of Monty Watkins, who heard the case of, the state of Tennessee versus, Andrew Delkey, who was, being put on trial for what they thought might be first-degree murder. But of course, they would never get him on first-degree murder charges, and they know they would never get him on first-degree murder charges. But the family said, well, that's not what the grand jury told me or told us, and we want justice. We want a first-degree murder charge. See, what they were looking for was, they were looking for a Chauvin type of jail sentence. You give them 22 years, plus you give them extra time in federal prison, because then they can sit back and say, well, hey, he violated civil rights. And then when it's all said and done, you know, we'll also get a nice juicy settlement out of it. Well, Monty Watkins heard that both attorneys had come up with a reasonable plea deal. The plea deal was 3-year sentence, and he would be out in a year. And he resigned from the police department. And the mother, well, I understand, you're devastated that you lost your child, but let's not ignore the fact that he had a gun and that he was pointing it at the officer. And that left the officer no choice. Now, again, we have to look at the facts. So the initial call was that there was a stolen vehicle, but the officer lost sight of the stolen vehicle. Now, he catches up to a vehicle that looks like the vehicle that was stolen. One occupant is running, fleeing on foot. So you've got felony fleeing and eluding. Now, as he's running, the police officer is saying, "Stop, get on the ground." And he's repeating this command over and over and over and over and over. Which repeatedly overrules their false story of that this guy was just simply Dirty Harry. And yes, he did have a gun. And yes, he was pointing it at the police officer. Now, let's be fair and honest. If that gun is loaded, which it most likely was, and he's running and he's scared because he knows he's not supposed to have that gun, and he fires and he kills that cop, yes, he would be sitting on death row. Without a question in my mind, he'd be sitting on death row. But he decided that he was going to take the other option, which was to become a martyr. And the mother, sat back and basically said, well, my son loved me. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. If your son loved you, why did your son have a gun in his hand? Why was he running from the police department? That's not a son who loves you, and that's not a son who respects you. That's a son who's just going to go out and go do whatever the hell he wants when he wants because he's absolutely, positively, 110% grown. And of course, the mother is, you know, kicking and screaming and calling him a motherfucker. And, I mean, she was just, putting on this temper tantrum that was, all good for the camera, right? And then outside the courtroom, you had all the people that were there to support the family shaking things and screaming, no justice, no peace, no justice, no peace, right? And they had to basically clean them out of the courtroom. And the brother is, yelling and screaming, what about what we want? You know, they told us at the last minute that he was getting a 3-year deal. They didn't ask us what we wanted. Well, that's because they don't have to ask you what you want. If the attorneys come up with a reasonable sentence, they make a deal, that's what you get. Well, that's systemic racism. No, that's just the way the law is set up. And so, their attorney, their representative, their watchdog, right? Who again is like Crump, you know, the ambulance chasing race baiter, right? She stands up in front of the court and she makes this big dramatic speech about, Judge Monty Watkins, you can stop this plea deal in its tracks. You can say no, you're not, accepting this plea deal. We go to trial and we take our chances at trial. And then she threw in the systemic racism card. Yeah, that's right. She went there. She went there. And so after the whole melee ends, right? The whole big, dog and pony show. What did the judge do? Honored the 3-year deal, said 3 years. That's what you get. Remanded into custody. Case is over with. Right? So then, it doesn't end there. So then their watchdog race baiter, right, basically comes out and says, we're suing the city and we're suing Delkey and we're asking for this amount of money. I think they wanted $30 million or something like that, right? At the end of the day, They got 2 million out of it, and this guy will still get out of jail. So they really technically didn't get all that they had hoped that they were going to get out of it. Well, we'll fight. We'll fight to keep him in jail. Well, after his 3 year sentence is over with, he's free to go. If the deal is that, after a full year of being in prison, he's, granted parole, there's not a damn thing you're going to say. Now, again, they think they're going to get what they want, but at the end of the day, they're not going to get what they want. And will they be back on TV again talking about racism? Oh, yeah. Yep. Yep. Absolutely. They will. They'll be back. They'll be back. Why? Because they'll never leave well enough alone. See, it's not bad enough that they've already made an ass of themselves, but they made an ass of good, decent, hardworking black people who don't sit there and whine and cry and throw up bullshit diatribe. And see, this is again where I agree with Brandon Tatum, that it makes other people not want to be around you and not like you. It makes them wish that you know somebody else started a business so that you can go over there, because they don't want you in their restaurant. They don't want you in their Walmart. They don't want you in their grocery store. They don't want you at their Kohl's. They don't want you at their Staples. They don't want you around people, because you can't act right in front of other people. And see, what I find funny is that, if the shoe was on the other foot, where they're forced, and I'm talking about the ones, who are stupid and run amok, right? If they were forced into taking that business, right? And I'm talking about giving full 100% control of the business. I guarantee you they would treat that thing like it was glass. Now, how do I know that? Well, you have to know people good enough and how they act and how they think. And if you've hung around them long enough, you know, where the boundary lines lie because they let you know right off the bat that this is my motherfucking house. And you don't come up in my house and disrespect my house. So you don't, go in my refrigerator and take my food. You don't sleep in my bed. You don't just jump on my computer. You don't play my kids' video games. You don't turn on my TV and watch it. You respect my boundaries. You don't even drink my soda. Or my milk, or my orange juice, or anything else. Unless I tell you you can have it. Or you can do it. And so imagine applying that now to having a business, right? And think about where would the boundaries be in a business? You know, you don't come up into my business and start yelling and demanding, right? You don't take things that don't belong to you. You don't start fist fights. You don't start with this, I'm going to use the terminology, nigga this and nigga that. You don't do that. You don't do it. You respect the boundaries. Services are not free. Pay for your product. If you are not completely satisfied with your service, then we will, hash it out with you. We will, go over what the policy is as far as, whether or not you're going to be compensated or, how that compensation is going to look. Are you going to get something different, but it's the same, or are you going to get your money back? But don't just walk in there and start slamming things and throwing things and talking about this, that, and the other thing. Because again, it ain't going to fly. Ain't going to fly. It's like the story of the happy red apple in, I think it was Brooklyn, New York. Customer came in with, her granddaughter, and it's an Asian run nail salon. So anyway, after the service was over with, right? The granddaughter said, I don't like how it looks. I don't like how it looks. It was an eyebrow threading, I guess. Right? And they said, well, I don't want to pay $5. Now, $5 is the standard price, right? $5 is nothing. You can buy an egg roll and a Coke for $5, right? It's nothing. Well, next thing you know, there's, a bit of pushing and shoving, and before you know it, the employees have brooms in their hands, and one had what they call um, some kind of liquid. It's not aspartame, but it's something. But anyway, you can look up the video. It's on YouTube. And it turns into this big melee brawl, right? It's a big, humongous melee brawl. Now, cops get called. They basically break up this little tiff that had transpired. Now, keeping in mind that again, the company, and I don't care if it's $5. It doesn't matter if it's $5. It's the fact that they are owed the money. You paid for the service. You received the service. And so by receiving the service, you must pay. It's not free. Absolutely, positively, 100% not free at all. Well, And by the way, just so people do know, that if you refuse to pay, you are guilty of defrauding a business of their funds. I believe a gentleman in, I think it was Las Vegas, his friends and him went out to a Ruth Chris steakhouse. Now, if you have ever been to a Ruth Chris steakhouse, you know that Ruth Chris is a very expensive steakhouse. Very expensive. Everything is a la carte. If you don't know what a la carte means, it means everything you pay for is separate. You pay for your veggies separate, you pay for your potatoes separate, you're paying for your meal, you're paying for your drinks, you're paying for your appetizer, the whole shebang. And his friends, and mind you now, okay, it was this guy's birthday. It was this guy's birthday. So they promised him that they were going to all chip in and buy him dinner. Well, they all walked out, right? And they left him holding the bag. And the management said, "Where's the money?" They said, "You were going to pay." So we need our money. We need, and again, the bill was, I think, over $300, right? And he said, "I'm not the one that is paying. They're all paying, not me. I'm not paying a dime because they are taking me out for my birthday." And the management said, "No, no, no, you're paying, or we're calling the cops." Okay, well, call the cops then. Basically, call the cops. Okay, all right, well, so cops get called. They sort out the story. The birthday boy gets arrested for defrauding a business of their funds. Now, they did make an arrest in the nail salon incident, and they didn't, arrest any of the employees. Who did they arrest? The young girl, right? Whatever they charged her with. And everybody was in a super outrage. They're racist. They're racist. Rodney King. Rodney King. No justice, no peace. Right? Black money matters. Black money matters. Black money matters. They're laying it on super duper thick, right? So every day, people in the neighborhood, right, would gather up and they would hold this protest in front of the nail salon, right? and they're screaming and yelling them down, and I mean, even one of them, whoever it was, managed to put a crack in the window. And then, the cops would basically tell the owner of the nail salon, you know, close down for the day, de-escalate the whole thing, because all they're gonna do is keep gathering every time you open up the door, and they're just gonna make more problems for you. So what you do is you just, you shut it down early and go home, and that's it. You're done for the day. Go home, kick your feet up, relax. So that's what they would do. They would, close up, and they put the little shutter down, and go home. And of course, they think that they won the battle and they won the war. So they cheer and all this other goofy stuff. And then they would hang, you are being evicted by, you know, you are being evicted by the neighborhood, by the community, right? And they would put all their stupid stuff up on the metal shutter. And so eventually they said, you know what? Hey, we've got other locations in the city, and we can, just work in there. You know, we can work in those nail salons. We don't, we don't need this location in order to make money, because we're doing very profitably well in other boroughs of New York. So they said, we're out of here. We're done. Now, they were all super mondo happy, cheering, having a big old fat circle jerk. And the first thing that I thought of was, it doesn't go far enough, you know, because you see, you need to teach dumbasses a lesson. And I thought, man, how can you get them back for that? They closed down your business. Let's see. Well, you could technically firebomb the joint and burn it down to the point where nobody would be able to ever use it ever again. But then if it was linked back to you, then you'd be guilty of arson. So you don't want to do that. So how do we get them back? What's the one or two ways that we can get them back for this? And then it dawned on me. What you do is you shut down the location of the business. but you keep the rights to the property so that nothing can go in there. And then on top of that, you go around and you talk to other Asian business owners that are in that neighborhood, and you convince them that it would be better to find another location somewhere and shut down that business, but do what we're doing. Keep the rights to the rental property so that nothing can go in there. You say, yeah, but that's not going to that's not going to work because they can go down the road and they can, go to this place and they can go to that place and they can go to that other place. Well, you know what? If they have to travel, because they've got nothing local, because this is a retaliation for shutting you down, I say, oh well. Now, are they going to scream racist? Probably. They probably will. Will they have any proof that it's racist? No. Nope. They'll have no proof that there's any racism involved in it. But rather than cause more problems, rather than, you know, have to deal with more problems, they just said, hey, it's simply better to get out of Dodge than anything that anybody else can ever you know ever do to them. And don't get me wrong, is that the right you know is that the right attitude for it? Yeah, it is. It's the right attitude for it. but it's like, hey, I got something to take care of real quick. Anyway. So, kudos to them, for doing the right thing and, letting them have it and getting out of the neighborhood and, you know, who knows? I mean, the next business might not be as even remotely close to successful as the nail salon. So, in the end, you might win that battle, you know. You might win that battle. I'm not saying you will, but I'm just saying you might win the battle. It's very possible that you could win the battle. But again, it makes people not like you. It makes people want you to just go away. You know. So, in summary, have we proven that racism exists today? No, no. What we've proven here today, folks, is that crying wolf and victimizing themselves is the only thing that they can do, and everybody is scared out of their minds. And so, you know, they hand them a whole boatload of money and they say, here, 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 here. Keep quiet, keep quiet. It's like the joke, and I'll end with this about the mother and her lover who were getting ready to make love. She hears a car door slam, and she says, "Oh no, my husband's home. You got to go run and hide, because if he sees you here, he's going to kill you." And so he's mad, scrambling around, looking for a place to go run and hide and stay out of plain sight until the husband leaves. So she says, "Here, here, 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 in the closet, in the closet, in the closet. He'll never check in the closet. He'll never suspect that you're there. All right, and take my son in there too while you're at it. Keep him quiet." So they go in the closet and she shuts the door, and the husband comes walking in, and he's talking to the wife, and the son says, "Sure is dark in here." And the lover says, "Kid, quiet." A few minutes passes. The little boy says, a little louder now, "Sure is dark in here." And the lover says, "Kid, shut up." A few more minutes passes. And now he's gotten I would say way bit more vocal than normal. And he says, Sure is dark in here." And the lover says, "Kid, what is it going to take to shut you up?" The kid thinks for a second, and it hits him. "Well, I need a new bike." And the lover looks at him, and the lover says, "Oh, no, 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 no. No, 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 that's blackmail, kid. That is blackmail. Not doing it. No." So the little boy gets ready to say it louder, and he says, "Sure it. All right, kid, you win. Shut up, and I'll get you the bike." So husband leaves. The mother and lover engage in sex. Little boy goes out to play. Next day, brand new, fully assembled bike shows up at his house. And he's all super duper duper happy. And so he hops on it and he rides around and he's showing everybody his brand new bike that he got. And, he's just a happy little kid. So drives around town, and he comes up to the local church. And he had never been inside the church before. So he was curious. So he got off his bike and he parks it and lays it down, and he walks into the church, and he's amazed by everything that he sees. He sees statues, and he sees, the beautiful flooring, and the whole deal. And he's walking around and he's looking, and he comes up to where the confessionals are. He opens the door and he peeks his head in a little bit. I mean, he had never seen a confessional before. So I wondered, what do you do when you're in here? So he walks in, and he and he closes the door. And sits down. And a little wood panel slides open. And the little boy says, "Sure is dark in here." And the voice on the other side says, "Now don't start that shit again." All right, folks, that's it. That's all she wrote, folks. So, thank you for tuning in. Till the next time, where we'll tackle another subject. And who knows? Who knows where the hell it'll lead? But we'll just have to wait and see now, won't we? Adios.